Hello, everyone! Welcome to another Lo-Fi History here at the Cottrell Digital Studio at the Northeast Georgia History Center. Oh, wait, where's that coming from? 1 second. There we go. I was hearing myself.
Okay.
Hey, Clavion on Twitch. Hello, Rice. Hello. And we've also got Joshua with us again.
Hey, Joshua.
Hello. Always good to see our regulars. And if you are new to Lo-Fi History, we have Lo-Fi History every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, and we are here to answer your history questions. More specifically, Glen and Marie are here to answer your history questions. I will be monitoring the chat. I'm Libba. And we always like to start off with what Marie and Glen are wearing today. And I think I'll start with Marie and then we'll get to you, Glen. So Marie, tell us about what you're wearing today.
So I am dressed as a Puritan. Now, some people might say I'm dressed as a pilgrim. Some of the pilgrims were Puritans, not all. And not all Puritans were pilgrims. Puritans are a religious group that went on before and after their coming to America story. Mainly in the New England colonies, predominantly Massachusetts, because that's kind of where they landed. Not on purpose, but it's what happened. So I have my nice little Puritan cap, which is very plain. That's kind of their thing, is being very plain. Dark color dress, and then I have like a fichu. I'm not sure. I kind of was just like experimenting with this. I'm not sure if that's actually what they would have had as their collars, or if they would have had like something different. Probably something that like holds this together, but I didn't have anything for that today.
But you call that a fichu?
I call it a fichu. That's the kind of the 1700s definition of that ladies would wear. So I am not exactly sure if this is the exact thing that should have been worn in the 1600s, in which we, in America, think of the Puritans / pilgrims wearing these things.
Now, you said that pilgrims could be Puritans, but not all... Wait. Puritans can be pilgrims, but not all pilgrims are Puritans. So...
Yes.
So what other reasons other than wanting, I guess, religious freedom would someone come to the New World during that time?
Yes, so there were actually people on the Mayflower who were not of the Puritan faith, but we still kind of consider them to be like the Pilgrims. But they just wanted to come to make money, to see if they could carve out a piece of land here to make a life, try to make some money, see if they could gain wealth. Perhaps get some fame for being some type of explorer that goes to America. There are a whole host of reasons other than just religious freedom, but America likes to think of itself that way, so that's the one that we usually focus on.
Especially the Pilgrims.
Yeah.
Yes.
But people are coming, I mean, you have to remember that Europe in the 1600s and even into the 1700s, all the land is taken. There is a mass overabundance of labor and an unspeakable shortage of property, of land.
So a big shiny other continent of land.
Exactly. It's the exact opposite in the New World, right? There is practically no one to work the land or to work, I say industry, but farms and the very fledgling industry, and they're giving land away, right? You're lucky if you can work with rent for the rest of your life, an acre, say in England. Come to the New World, they'll give you 100 of them.
Wow.
If you survive.
But you gotta survive. I mean, the people know how to farm. That's the magic of the New World, right? This is not. It's not the American dream yet.
You could die. But you could also die in England.
Exactly.
That's true. Yeah. So
exactly.
Pick where you die.
Weigh the benefits. Weigh the pros and cons. So, Glen, jumping like, what, 400, 300 years from Marie. So you've got your...
Come back with me on a journey to the long ago days of almost 30 years ago.
Wow.
Now, Libba sort of chuckled at me when I wore these things in with my heavy metal Guns N' Roses t-shirt from Appetite for Destruction, released in July 1987, and the sunglasses and the half like covering my head, sort of like yours. Not exactly a Puritan movement, but it is supposed to cover my head.
Dark
head
colors.
It's kind of the same, right?
Yeah, exactly.
and Libba chuckled at me when we came in, but then I reminded her that this look is older than she is.
It's true.
It's true. I have done extensive research into this period and am dressed as someone would have been when they're about to graduate from high school in 1991.
Would you
That's
say
accurate.
that you had an immersive experience in this
A
time
very
period?
immersive experience, yes. I would say that.
Freed on Twitch says, Glenn looks like he is about to say, hello, fellow kids.
That's right.
Hey, Freed, good to see you.
Isn't this what people are still wearing to be hip and cool?
Yes, that is very cool and groovy and
It's not groovy, it's awesome.
awesome.
Radical.
Totally epic.
Yeah, I think groovy was
For
the
sure.
70s or 60s.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah, what
definitely.
gnarly, maybe? That's what I think
Gnarly's
of,
a good
like,
one. Yeah,
80s.
gnarly.
Yeah.
Gnarly.
Ooh, that would be a fun live stream. Let's just go through slang over the decades.
Okay, we can
That
do
would be pretty fun. Speaking of live streams we ought to do, Carrie has a question that is directly related to a live stream that I really want us to do, and that is the history of the domestic cat. Now, we get cat questions fairly often. Y'all, we have a lot of cat fans out there. But Carrie's wondering, they say, I'm sitting here with my cat staring at me. Any fun tidbits about cats in history? Now, before we have discussed, you know, there's the Egyptian phenomenon of cats being worshipped. There is the time where cats were basically, not necessarily outlawed, but very looked down upon during the medieval period under what king was it? I can't remember, Marie.
Gregory.
The ninth? Not the ninth.
Pope Gregory.
VII.
Pope Gregory the something.
And people
Didn't like
tended
cats.
to, but yeah, people tended to ignore him too, because if you're in a almost exclusively agricultural society and you are putting up corn and grain for the winter, you don't want rats to get in there. There is nothing better to kill rats and mice than a cat. Nothing.
Right.
Cats in
so-
the countryside, though. City cats.
That's true. Oh.
Maybe they were just after those city cats. Then they saw those as
They
the
didn't
reincarnation
fare well.
of the devil or something.
There were still lots of cats killed.
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
Right.
But do we have any other tidbits or factoids that are cat related? Glen or Marie, do you know any famous historic figures that actually liked cats outside of just their practical use? Even had a pet cat, perhaps?
I'm sure
Famous pet cats.
several people do. Yeah, I don't know if any famous pet cats, but I know when you look at some of the portraiture of the 1700s, sometimes you see a cat in the background. Sometimes those when they're sitting at the desk and they're doing the things like this, and there'll be like a little basket over here with a cat peeking out of it. Those are fun.
Those are fun.
Right.
Yeah.
So cats were around probably very much like they're around us today. People just don't pay a ton of attention to them from a historic portraiture. If you could afford a portrait, you don't want to share the attention.
Yeah, right.
I mean, right? The cat's going to steal the show.
That's true. There are some where they have like I think it was a cat, the one I'm thinking of, and it's almost like done up like a baby in their lap.
Aw.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cute.
Cat mom to a whole new level. You
Yes,
pay
Freed says
to have
cats
your
are nature's
puppy
rat poison after all.
That's a good way to put it. Now, in the 1987 Poison album, Look What the Cat Dragged In, there was a great single called Look What the Cat Dragged In.
Nice segue.
Gotta pull that into the costume.
Yeah. So Carrie, look out for our. We are definitely going to do a history of the domestic cat
We need to, yeah.
live stream eventually. That
Can
will
we bring our
certainly be
cats
part
to
of our
it?
lineup.
That's what I keep asking.
At least our kitty photos. We got to share because I think we all have cats here
Yeah.
at the History Center. Almost, I think everyone at the History
Yes.
Center.
They do.
We do
Of course,
all
when we
have
say that, we
cats.
mean like 4 people. So.
Yes.
But thanks for being here, Carrie, and for prompting us with that, because it's a good reminder that a lot of y'all would probably be interested in that, just like we are. We've also got, we've got Clavion here. We've got Amy Beaucham. That's my mom. Hi, Mom. And we've also got Andrea. Sienna says hi. Hi, Sienna.
Hey.
Sienna is in our homeschool connection class, and she is an excellent student with awesome questions. So Sienna, if you want to throw in a question while you're here today, do feel free. Love it. And we also got Terry in the chat. Hey, Terry. So everyone, if you would like to throw in a question, go right ahead. All you have to do is chat your question, and I will check for them. And in the meantime, I also wanted to let you know that tomorrow we have a really fun live stream about Queen Elizabeth II, and we will be celebrating her birthday and learning about her life and times.
Her 95th birthday.
95.
She's so
that's
awesome.
A big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so please join us for that. That's tomorrow on YouTube and Facebook at 2 p.m. Eastern. And of course, we also have our donation goal, our monthly donation goal. We are trying to reach 300 by the end of April. And I will put that link in the chat, but it's also right down below, right under Glen. And you can also become part of our raffle. So our raffle, actually, let me get a picture so I can show y'all what we are going to raffle. I'm probably going to throw this in front of Glen's face. Here we go. There we go. Just dropped it in. So yes, we are going to be raffling this box of British-themed teas. And every $5 you donate, that's going to enter you into the raffle. And we're going to announce the winner next Monday. Yes, hello.
Oh, you know, you were talking about it being at 2 p.m. Eastern tomorrow.
Yes.
And I have a question for Freed, because this is a math question and it's too hard for us history people. We always love it when you tune in. What time is it where you're at?
Yeah.
If it's 4 p.m. here, does that make it late? Much later there?
I would imagine so. Is it
so.
evening in Germany? Let's see. We'll see. Joshua, yes, we do have your question from last week. We're gonna actually, we'll start with that one now.
It's another Manzikert question, isn't it?
It might be. Let me check. But while we're still on the topic of cats, Sienna was wondering, how long have cats been around? And I guess it depends on how we're defining cat.
Because from a biological perspective, from a domesticated perspective.
Yeah, if you're thinking about like the domesticated cat, let me look that up.
Yeah.
How long has the domestic cat been around?
Probably since civilization. I mean, literally.
Yeah, it says the first domesticated cats, according to National Geographic, was as early as 4,000 years ago.
I mean, you know, the explanation I gave was sort of trite, but it's true. You know, rodents are drawn to grains being stored, and cats are drawn to the rodents to eat them. You don't have stored grains unless you have agriculture. And when you have agriculture, you need to protect that crop because you've worked so hard to get it, especially when you go all the way back, like you said, 4,000, 2000 BC when they're just developing that. And so all you've got to do is the cats are going to start hanging out around your house or your barn or your village anyway, so you're going to like make buddies with them. And they're going to make, I guess the real question may be, how long has the cat domesticated humans?
Yeah, really.
Honestly, that's the question.
Ended up on your cat. That's a more legitimate approach, I think.
I think it is.
Yeah. So Sienna, a couple of thousands of years at least, the domestic cat has been around, which is just so cool. Freed says it is about 10:13 p.m. Where they are. So thank you for joining the late night. And Terry, it's 3 p.m. And David, it's 21:13. I am not good with military time.
21. Wait a minute.
Does that mean 10:13 as well?
No,
for us?
21. No,
21:13.
That's like 9. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. Something like that.
Joining us in the evening. That's so cool. I think it's just so neat that we have so many people from all over the world.
I know. It's so cool.
Yeah. All right. So let's go to Joshua's question from last week. Yes, it is related to the Eastern Romans. What would have happened? Ooh, always a good history question. What would have happened if the Fourth Crusade actually got to the Holy Land, either doing good or not?
Oh, okay. So let's contextualize.
Yes,
this a little
please.
bit. So there are these things called Crusades, and the Crusades were efforts by Western Europe, Western Christendom, to try to free the Holy Land from the oppressive forces of Islam that had occupied it. And Islam had spread through the Middle East and across the northern coast of Africa in the 600s, 700s, 800s, and was, religious stuff aside, was a brand new, incredibly powerful political force that was conquering a lot of territory and taking over a lot of governments very, very quickly. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, very, very quickly. And so, these are still the holy sites. The Levant, the Eastern Mediterranean, contain the holy sites for three major world religions: Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. Right? So those sacred sites, those holy sites, people are going to want, from those different groups, are going to want to, if not have control over them, at least have unfettered access to them. And that usually happened for a while until long story, some conflict started, and it was getting more and more difficult for Christian pilgrims from Western Europe to get to the holy sites. And so there was also political pressure. So the emperor of, I think it wasn't Alexius Comnenus, maybe it was his predecessor, sent a letter to Pope Urban II and said, we need help pushing the forces of Islam back so the Eastern Empire can remain intact and can protect those trade and pilgrim routes. Well, rather than just sending some help, because what he was thinking about was 2,000 or 3,000 guys to come and help fight. Pope Urban gets this, sees it as an opportunity to sort of direct and control those violent forces in Western Europe with the different kings and dukes and knights that had been fighting each other. He can take that and force them to direct their energy in a unified way towards something else other than killing each other. So the Crusades are born. And the First Crusade makes its way, about tens of thousands of people join the crusade that's called Taking the Cross, and they go and they eventually do conquer Jerusalem in 1099, and it falls under the control of Western Christians, and they set up their own kingdoms and principalities in that area. That's the First Crusade. Then that goes along for some time, and there are efforts in other crusades to take other parts of the Holy Land. The forces of Islam push back. They reconquer Jerusalem in 1187, and so the Third Crusade under King Richard the Lionheart and the King of France, this is the King's Crusade because a lot of kings come on this one, try to retake Jerusalem. They fail, and so the Third Crusade takes back some land, but it doesn't take the key city. So now there is another effort a couple of decades later to try and take Jerusalem again. And this is headed up by the Venetians. The Venetians have by far the largest fleet and therefore a lot of money in the Mediterranean. And they're sort of acting as the power brokers, as the middlemen for this Fourth Crusade, basically making loans to people, for the shipping and supplies and things like that. So Venice gets all these warriors from Western Europe in their pocket and on these ships. And then they basically say, you know what, you owe us a lot of money. A lot of money. What we could do is we're having trouble. We can't free Jerusalem because the people in Constantinople, those Eastern Christians, are almost as bad. So we need to take them out before we can get to Jerusalem. And if you help us take them out in Constantinople, we will forgive all of your debt. Mm-hmm. Well, the Western Christians are sort of between a rock and a hard place. They can't pay it back. They're stuck in the East. They can't get back home. So they're like, okay. Long story short, the Fourth Crusade, the embarrassment of all the Crusades, where the forces of Christendom lay siege to and sack the greatest Christian city in the entire world, and cause a lot of trouble. They only weaken the Eastern Empire, and as a result, that hastens the demise. Now, I say it hastens the demise. It still holds out until 1457. Is that right? I think when Constantinople finally falls to the Sultan Muhammad II. I can't remember. I may be getting that wrong. Anyway, that's the Fourth Crusade. So Joshua's question is, if somehow the Venetians hadn't been dodgy, you get it? The Doge, dodgy.
That's pretty good.
If they had been able to focus their efforts on actually freeing the Holy Land and Jerusalem rather than going to sack Constantinople, would they have made it? It's a very good question. My guess would be yes, because they had a lot of soldiers, they had a lot of power, they had a lot of financial backing because Venice was backing it, and Venice was super powerful in this time. They didn't have any armies, but they had navies and they had money, which means they could buy their armies, which they did to take Constantinople. If that much force and that much effort had been focused on taking Jerusalem at that time rather than Constantinople, probably, yeah, they would have taken Jerusalem back. But they didn't. Now, let's assume that they did. Let's assume, like Joshua says, that they were able to accomplish that. I think you're going to have the exact same problem and situation if they had captured it as they had after the First Crusade when they captured it. So, during the First Crusade, all these people had come, they fight, they free the Holy Land. 75% of them are done. They want to go home, and so they do, which doesn't leave a whole lot of people to sort of man the defenses and run things. That probably would have happened, assuming the Fourth Crusade went the way we're suggesting it should have. That probably would have happened again, and the forces of Islam would have just gone back into that weakening place and taken back over. So it probably would not have come to naught.
Wow.
No, it would have come to naught.
Yes, right.
Sorry, too many knots. That's a naughty situation. That's my answer, Joshua.
Yes. And excellent context as well. Whew. And I recall one of our reruns this summer might as well be the Knights of the Crusade.
We did one on Knights of the Crusade. Yeah, that would be a good one.
So we'll probably highlight that one during our summer of reruns, Joshua. So if you haven't seen that yet, definitely check that out. We also have Bobble is back. Hello, Bobble on Twitch. Good to see you. All right, so our next question comes from Alma. Alma says, greetings from San Diego. Hello. My 10-year-old daughter has discovered the musical Six about Henry VIII's wives. So she wants to know, who is your favorite of his wives and why? And Marie, I know you probably want to take this one.
Yes. That's an interesting question. My favorite of Henry VIII's wives.
And maybe if you could refresh our memory for our audience. I mean,
yes.
Who were his wives?
Yes. So the musical Six centers around the 6 wives, or ex-wives as they call themselves, of Henry VIII. So Henry VIII comes to power in the Tudor dynasty. He is kind of obsessed, kind of meaning completely obsessed with having a male heir to then continue his line in the Tudor dynasty, which eventually happens, kind of. So he has 6 wives. First off, we have Catherine of Aragon. Catherine of Aragon is the Spanish princess. You might also recognize that as being the title of a new TV series called The Spanish Princess.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
yes,
cool.
It's about Catherine of Aragon. She's finally getting some of her due.
Well, all right.
Because everyone always focuses on Anne Boleyn because she's like the most glamorous or whatever.
Right.
But Catherine of Aragon was his wife for so long. She was also the wife of his older brother who died before, like, they even were really married. They were barely married, Catherine of Aragon and the Henry VIII's older brother, who I think was named Arthur.
And see, that always killed. That would have been so cool. If he had just lived, there actually would have been a King Arthur.
Oh, wow.
It was really close.
It was that close.
It was very close. But then
he did not make it.
He didn't make it. So they didn't want to send her back to Spain because she brought a lot of money, and they also wanted to have an alliance with Spain, and sending her back after like barely a year of being there doesn't really look great.
It's kind of tacky.
It's a little tacky to just like be like, whoops, he died. I guess you should go back home now. So Henry VIII actually ends up marrying her because they kind of like fall in love. They have like a little romance going on. after his brother dies, because they hang out there. He's very impressed with her intellect. She is an incredibly astute politician.
Oh, interesting.
And she doesn't get her due for that, which makes me angry. Because she was a very good queen.
She was the best of his wives.
Really.
I think.
She knew what she was doing. She hung on to the bitter end of that divorce. It was an ugly divorce.
Yeah.
It created a whole church.
Right.
But basically, Henry is convinced that their marriage is cursed because their children keep dying, even though it's the 1500s and infant mortality rates are just incredibly high, whether or not you're a king or a peasant. But they have one surviving child who is Mary. Princess Mary, who is heir presumptive. So they have sons, but they all either are stillborn or they die very shortly after birth. This leads Henry to, wander. Just because he was like that, and also he wants a male heir. He had affairs before he set his sights on Anne Boleyn. Anne Boleyn wants to be queen, and she is a little bit power hungry, wee bit, and kind of helps orchestrate him divorcing Catherine of Aragon so that he can marry her. Well, she is very ambitious and very much enjoys the power that queendom brings. She promises him that she will give her a son. She gets pregnant very quickly, even before they are officially married, and she's crowned queen with who we know as Queen Elizabeth. At that point, it would be Princess Elizabeth the First. Well, it didn't really last that long because she said that she would give him a son. She didn't.
She lied. Ish. In medieval times, she lied.
I see.
That's what King Henry thought. He wanted to divorce her. They had a lot of other issues going on as well. She may or may not have been cheating on him. He was definitely cheating on her, but if you're a man, then that doesn't matter. And he beheads her.
Yikes.
Yes. And then marries Jane Seymour. Jane Seymour is this nice little country girl. Well, not country girl. She's at court. But she's nice. She has childbearing hips, gives him a son, and then dies a few weeks after.
Oh, wow.
From childbed fever.
Oh, no.
Yes. So then he marries another person, Anne Boleyn's cousin. Because that worked out so well the first time for that family.
That won't be awkward.
Not at all. So he marries Catherine Howard.
He'd already married his brother's wife. Why not marry his ex-wife's or his dead wife's cousin? I mean, it's...
And then behead her.
Yeah. Wait, did he?
Yes.
Oh.
It was not well. It did not end well for that family.
Yikes.
Technically, he had someone else behead her. He had people for that.
Okay, he had people for that, but he's the one who wanted it to happen.
He signed his name to that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you have Catherine Howard, and who was actually probably cheating on him. It seems like she was having an affair with some other people. She was super, super young, and he was getting really old. So,
he's to the point of the portrait that you think of, right?
Yeah.
Yes. He was kind of being that,
all gouty
with the turkey leg man. He was to that point when he married Catherine Howard. And his beginning, when he married Catherine of Aragon, he was actually a young, strapping, athletic type.
He was Europe's most eligible bachelor.
He really was. Power, looks, money, he had it all going for him. Which probably went to his head and explains his terrible behavior.
Yeah.
Of being a wife-killing monster. But that's besides the point. And, well, actually, no, that's the entire point.
That's
the entire point. And then, so he beheads, or has Catherine Howard beheaded, and then marries Catherine Parr, who outlives him and survives.
So, technically, she stays married to him.
She does.
She's the widow.
Yes.
And she's the one who cares for young Edward so much, right?
Okay.
I mean,
she's the one who kind of takes care of his son.
Yeah.
Because there's no other wife left to do it.
So it sounds like
he kind of tries to foster more of a family feel to this not so family friendly environment.
So he gets his son eventually.
Yeah, he
but...
dies.
James Seymour.
Yeah,
the third one.
He dies thinking that, okay, I've done it. I've got a male heir on the throne. Done. Everything's good.
But then
Edward's very sickly and dies.
And did he die when he was about like 9 or?
No,
he was like in his teens.
Oh, really?
Late,
okay.
Yeah, like mid-teens, mid to late teens.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
So he becomes king. He's king for like a wee bit. And then he dies. And then they try to put Jane Grey on the throne, who was his cousin, on the other side, ignoring Mary and Elizabeth. Because there's all sorts of, when you have 6 wives, which wife's child comes first in the line of succession?
Oh, thank you so much for the follow, Senior Rubio. Sorry, I can't say your name, but Senior, thank you. Appreciate that.
So
now we do have a quick question from Alma. What about Anna of Savells?
Oh, Anne of Cleves. Oh,
Cleves. Okay.
Yes.
You skipped over
I
Anne.
did skip over Anne. How
if you want to marry
me.
Henry, the key is to have your name be Anne, number 1.
Anne or Catherine.
Anne or Catherine.
There are 2 Annes and then there are also 3 Catherines. There's 3 Catherines and 2 Annes and 1 Jane. And I'm so sorry. Yes, I totally skipped over Anne of Cleves. So Anne of Cleves actually comes after Jane Seymour.
Yes, that is correct.
Yes. And she is a German princess who they thought would be a good match politically. And they send portraits, as you do, kind of like how you send Snapchats, right? They send portraits, and I guess she had a little bit too much of a filter on hers.
Oh, I see.
And he thought that she was super ugly in person.
Oh no.
And didn't want to marry her.
Oh no.
But they did technically get married, and then they got divorced really soon after.
Wow.
Because he thought she was ugly.
He swiped.
That's it.
Literally it.
That's it.
Wow.
I mean, it's your 4th wife at that point.
Well, maybe that was
pretense
really.
is gone.
That might have been really lucky.
She actually, of all
Dodged
of the
that bullet.
wives,
Yeah.
ended up well because her song in the musical, and I will now go through all of their songs in the musical sense, now that we know who they are. So, yes, she ends up with her song is Queen of the Castle because in the divorce settlement, she gets castles.
Ooh, nice.
So she just gets to live her own life in her own castle. She's super well set up, does not have to deal with Henry. I think she comes away as one of the winners.
Yeah.
Honestly, of that whole situation. There is Catherine's song, which I think that, she's the first ex-wife, so I think hers gets set up. I think I like her song. I think her song, I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's a strong representation of who I think she was and her standing of basically like, I am actually still the queen. And she continued to refer to herself as the queen until her death. So I think that it sets up, her song sets up the musical well. You just have a little bit more sympathy for her because I feel like she's sometimes vilified because Henry wanted her to be vilified, even though he's the villain in this. Of divorcing your wife for 40 years because he can't have a son. How stupid. But anyway.
Now to be fair, that is one of the top 3 primary worries of any monarch is to secure the succession.
But they had Princess Mary.
How did that turn out, Marie?
Oh, she was terrible queen. It was very bad.
But see, that's just it.
But that's only because they were Protestant and she wanted them to be Catholic. And if they had never had Anne come in, they still would have been a Catholic nation. So she wouldn't have had to worry about that.
Oh, but she was...
she didn't work out well either way.
Well, I mean, that's what's so funny is that after Anne Boleyn has this girl, Elizabeth, that sets Henry on the path to marriage. Right, everything up to that point.
Like the best Queen England ever had.
Right, but everything up to Catherine of Aragon and the divorce and Mary and Anne it's sort of a rational approach. It's a rational approach. It is for a king, not for a human being, but for a king.
If you take the human being aspect out of it and just consider
right.
yourself God's anointed on earth.
But Anne fails to produce a male heir, I think that's when Henry goes off the deep end and just starts going like this with wives. But
he also had an incident, like a jousting incident, where he got like a boing to the head with a lance.
No.
That's some people think that kind of made him go crazy.
That doesn't hurt you.
Glen knows.
You can get hit in the head with a lance a bunch of times and it doesn't do anything.
He also got knocked off the horse.
That's interesting though. I had no idea. That's
so some
theory.
people theorize that's kind of when the mental problems happen.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
But I mean, that's what Elizabeth turns out. What he thought was his greatest failure turned out to be by far his greatest legacy.
Yes.
Wow.
Now, Anne's song. Anne's song is like, oops, I did this. Sorry, not sorry about becoming queen. I think it sets her up. I think a lot of times she's played up as, I think she's just the most fascinating of the wives for sure. Because she's the one who kind of
she works the system.
Works the system to her favor. And I think that it's incredibly fascinating. I think Catherine's probably my favorite just as a human. But Anne is by far one of the most fascinating. I don't like how her song sets her up to be sorry about not sorry, oops, I did this, because I think unless you take it as the song kind of sarcastically, I think if you take the song more literally as what it's saying, I think it takes away how ambitious and conniving and planning and how this is what she wanted and she tried to do this and she was very aware of what she was doing. At least that's in my terms. I think she was very aware of what she was doing. Yeah. But the song in the musical sets it up to be where it's not. But this is historical fiction, so that's how they want to play the character in this. I think it's a fun song. Not my interpretation of Anne. Anna Cleves, very blanket song of you loved me, I gave you a son. I'm always going to be your favorite wife.
Jane Seymour.
Ah, that one. Yes.
It's hard to keep track.
It is.
Yes,
it's hard for Henry.
Seymour.
I mean, it's super tough
They're
for us.
fun. Very nice ballad of just kind of I gave you a son, you left me, and I died. And then we go on to what I think is probably one of the most interesting songs about Catherine Howard, because Catherine Howard. I've been skipping Anne today. I'm terribly sorry, Anne of Cleves. It goes to Anne of Cleves, where her song is I am the queen of the castle. It's great. I think that's a great song. It's so fun. Very girl power, of I'm the queen of the castle, let's go. I don't have to deal with you, Henry. It's great. Lots of fun. And then we go to Catherine Howard's song, and that one, I think, it sets her up to be a far more sympathetic character than she's usually ever given credit for in history, because it goes into how she was possibly sexually abused as a child, and how she was just used to men using her, and using her body in ways that history usually just kind of sets her up as she was young and foolish. Whoops.
Yeah. She
got beheaded. But I think this one, it really sets up as she was so young and used to this abuse that she should have never had to endure.
Right.
That I think it makes it I think it reveals a far more human side to her, and it gives her a more this is what happened actually.
Yeah.
Than just kind of the written off of being young and foolish. Versus yes, she was young, but she was also used. And then Catherine Parr is I survived.
Right.
Yay. But I think it's very interesting because the whole musical is styled as a 1980s / Tudor punk rock.
I had no idea this existed.
It's so fun.
I gotta check this out.
It's a lot of fun.
Well, that's
my review of the musical.
Yeah. I mean, thank you, Alma, and for your daughter for bringing that up. That's fascinating. And it does bring to mind that if you want to learn
it is
even
a little
more,
bit PG-13. There's a lot of language.
True. Yeah,
I'm going to put that disclaimer here before you play it for your children. There's a lot of adult themes and bad language.
Yeah.
It's Tudor England.
It's Tudor England.
If you want to learn more, though, once you become a digital member, Marie hosted a members live stream all about each of the wives.
I actually went on just about Anne Boleyn.
Oh, it was Anne Boleyn. Okay, yes. For the longest. Yeah. So if you want to learn more about
do another one
Anne
about
Boleyn,
them, though.
that would be cool. That would be cool. So thank you for bringing that up. Awesome. All right. Let's move on to our next question. Our next question comes from David, our longtime follower, David in Wales. And he asks, I'm a Mason. Are they big in the U.S.? Any famous ones?
The Freemasons?
Yeah, there are still Masonic lodges.
There's one by my house.
They're all over the U.S.,
yeah.
Right? They're all over. And, as far as, I don't know if there are famous ones now, but of course, half the founding fathers.
A lot of the presidents
were Mason. I mean, George Washington was a Mason. Patrick Henry was a Mason. Gouverneur Morris was a Mason.
Okay, but what is a Mason?
I'm not going to tell you.
It's a secret.
It's a secret.
One of the fun things, there's a historic Westville, which is in Georgia. It's kind of a, I don't want to say like pre-made because that's not the word. They took old buildings from around the southeast and then brought them to this one location in which they made a village.
Which is pretty cool.
Which is super cool. But one of the buildings is a Masonic Mason lodge.
Oh, how cool!
That's right.
And you get to walk inside it and see what it looks like.
That's right. I've been, and they have it decked out like an 1850s Masonic lodge with the symbolism on the wall.
Super cool.
And they've got
I'm never going to see one of these in real life.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and they have the cool apron, like they have a reproduction 1850s apron there and everything. So the Masons, long ago there were trades guilds, right? There was a guild for every trade, whether it's a baker or a miller or shoemakers and things like that. And these generally started in Europe in the medieval period. But stonemasons sort of were the ones that were the most secretive, not because of actually carving the stones and everything, but that is a very specific art, and there's a lot of math and science involved in stonemasonry in the medieval period because you're building, at the smallest, you're building village churches, which do require straight lines and things like that and precise measurements, much less when you get to cathedrals. So the Stonemasons Guild turned out to be one of the more powerful and more exclusive guilds that there were in the Middle Ages. And fast forward, going on up, you didn't have to be a stonemason by the time you get to the 1700s. It was something that community leaders would often join, and a secret society. That's sort of what people. It's not that secret. It's not that hard to get in, but it's basically, and always was, social networking. Right? It's social networking. The Masons do work. They social network within, and they always pledge to help each other out. So, but yeah, there are definitely a lot of Masonic lodges, even in the small towns. The town I grew up in had one right there on Main Street.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, a lot of Masons, a lot of famous Masons. I think it has sort of gotten a bad rap in the last 2 or 3 decades, maybe going back to maybe a little longer. Maybe even going back to the 60s, because it had this idea of this secret society when we're trying to be more egalitarian and equitable. But they're still around. I've never been abused by a Mason. I've never had them yell at me and tell me that they're better than me or anything like that.
So I mean, what do we know? What would Masons meet up? What do they do? Do they
secret?
I honestly don't know.
I'm just I didn't know if they did charitable works.
They do some charitable work.
Sometimes they're in parades.
Well, I guess it's just going to remain a secret unless one of us becomes a Mason.
That's right.
Gavin says charity work is part of being a Mason, so at least we know that much. Just what do they do? Just math formulas and philosophy or something?
I know, everyone needs their secrets.
Yeah, let us know, David, if there's anything you can tell us. But he also says promote their values, so that makes sense. Right. Definitely. Oh, that's funny. Bobble on Twitch says, on the Flintstones, Fred's group called the Water Buffaloes was supposed to be the bedrock version of the Masons.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's so cute. I love it. Now, our next question comes from Joshua, and I'm definitely going to need some context. I feel like with all Joshua questions, I'm going to need some context. What if the Sasanian Empire, modern-day Iran, managed to survive against the Islamic horde?
Sassanid.
Sassanid.
Sassanid or Sassanid?
Sassanid. That's it. Sassanid.
I'm
trying.
I don't. If they did, they probably would have been an island in a sea, right? Because, and you also have to remember, part of the spread of Islam wasn't just. It was a combination. It was a combination of religious fervor and religious conversion, as well as the politics that go along with that. That's one of the interesting things about Islam, is that the tenets of Islam were developed in such a way that the state and the religion go like this, right? They're hand in glove, and it's designed that way from the beginning. In the Quran, they talk about the different ways that the religious leaders are the state leaders and vice versa, and there is not remotely a sense of separation of church and state like we have, here in the States, and like many European countries eventually got to after the Reformation and after the split with Rome. But I think if they had been able to hold out, I think what you're going to see is a little island there of non-Islam surrounded by a sea, and there were very appealing aspects as far as the religious conversion goes that would have perhaps made the common people more prone. That's one of the ways it was able to spread so quickly, is because people got caught up in the fervor. I have no window into the souls of men, much less those, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So I can't exactly tell you what motivated them individually or in smaller communities, but we know that was a significant appeal, is the conversion to that faith. And so I think it would have been tricky. It's not just a matter of holding out militarily. You'd have to hold out politically, spiritually, morally, and from a point of view of just basic underlying society and social structures.
Bam.
Bam.
So let's see. If anyone has any last questions, we will take our last questions at this point. But go ahead and chat those for us. And I have a question for y'all. I was wondering, ever since your manuscript, illuminated manuscript members live stream, Glen, where we saw the snail,
yes,
and other depictions of what seemed like comical scenes, I'm wondering what kind of evidence, even into ancient times, do we have of a population or a culture's sense of humor?
That is an excellent question, Libba. Most of what we have is in the written record, right? Like I think we talked recently, I can't remember where, about the Greek tragedies, right? And there's humor in there if it's played right. And, humor is different not only from time to time, but even place to place. And, even today, there are countries and even regions within countries that have different senses of humor. The English have a very specific set of humor that is not necessarily like American humor. If you don't believe me, watch the 2 version of The Offices.
Oh yeah,
right.
That's a good point.
They're both funny, but they're both very, very different.
Yeah.
Watch Monty Python and the Holy Grail versus, or just not even the Holy Grail, the series Monty Python versus Saturday Night Live.
Right.
There are differences. So going back in time, there are instances of humor that you can see. Most of it comes to us from a literary perspective. The ancient world, in the imagery that it's left, especially when it's something solid that can survive, like carved stone or something, usually if they're taking the time to carve it into stone, they're going to put spiritual messages, important messages in there, and not necessarily humor. Like when you get to the illuminated manuscripts and the illustrations there. You know, and
we don't put memes in our official documents.
Yes.
right.
Although,
But
maybe we should.
Maybe we should.
and see, that's the thing. You know, a lot of these. There's been some speculation that this is just like a joke that the monks had within the monasteries.
Yeah.
Because they're living a very controlled, very isolated life, and day in and day out, their entire existence is eating, sleeping, praying, and doing drawings for books.
Yeah.
They're going to have some outlets, right?
And they find those in the margins.
And so they're, you know, they're sitting there and they're like, I can only draw so many Jesus and the apostles at the gate of a church before I've got to do a knight on a snail fighting a butterfly with a huge bum. And then they do that. And then, you know, and then another monk who's copying the manuscript goes, that's pretty funny. I think I'm going to make one too. But I'm going to put it down in the margins, right? You can't just start a chapter of the Bible out with that. You've got to put it down here in the margins. So it's not necessarily the focus, but you start to see a lot of those things. And when you start to get into the the later period with some of the secular artwork, I posted one on my Facebook page. Oh, it was 5 or 6 years ago, and I got all kinds of reactions to it. There is, from England or Germany, I think, in the late 1400s, there's a picture of, it looks like they're on a wooden platform outside their house. There is a woman who's on the edge of the porch. She's standing like this, and she is just hurling like crazy. She is throwing up, right? There's another guy over here kind of watching, going like this, and the guy behind the woman is holding her hair back, like someone who cares about someone. So he's holding her hair back. She's hurling off the porch, and there's another guy standing over there like this. So I put that post on my Facebook, and I tag people. So I'm tagging my wife as the throwing up woman. I'm tagging myself as holding the hair back. And I'm tagging my best friend as the guy who's going like this. And I got more reactions to that, and it freaked people out. They wondered where I'd gotten it. Yeah. Why did I draw that?
Oh my
And
God.
that just put me on a path to posting a lot of, not inappropriate, but let's say unique and eye-catching medieval illumination.
I've actually
pictures.
found the snail, one of many,
Right.
but I'm just going to
There's a
drop
lot
it
of
in.
snails.
Let me
I want
drop
to know
it
about
in
the
here.
Great Snail War.
There must have been a great snail war, yes.
So,
yeah, there's
what's
another.
going on here, folks? I mean,
That
this
is
isn't a
dumb.
manuscript, a medieval manuscript, and we got a knight.
A well-trained warrior, full armor, a shield, and a sword, and it looks like he is going down. Right?
I
Like,
think
what does
it
it
was like
mean?
a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids moment because he's standing on a branch.
That's true,
Right.
that's true.
The snail has forced him back into a precarious position.
Yes, he has. He's going really out on a limb there.
Yeah, literally.
You better leave that one alone,
Oh
Marie.
my goodness. So, good points all around, though. Freed says we should also compare the German version of The Office too for German humor.
Oh, I didn't know there was one.
I didn't realize that either.
Probably
That's
not
so
in
cool.
English, so we wouldn't
Well, I
understand
bet they could either subtitle or we could just follow along.
Yeah, right.
I
It's
didn't
probably
know that
funny
either,
either
so
way.
That's fantastic.
Yes. Now we have time for one more.
Well, it's like, you know, at the expense of Freed, I'll tell the joke we tell here in the U.S. About the German sense. I think Germans have fantastic senses of humor, and if you don't believe me, look at some of the pictures that buddies in World War I used to take with one another. They have the craziest pictures. But, you know, the United States doesn't realize that Germany has some really great senses of humor. So the joke is, how many Germans does it take to change a light bulb?
How many?
1, they are very efficient and do not laugh. See, that's funny.
Hope you enjoyed that, Freed. Hearts. So we have time for one more question, and Joshua, I do see your other question. We will once again get to that first thing next week. I'm gonna make sure
We're making sure you're tuning in for all of them, Joshua.
Yeah, exactly. So our next question comes from Lagger on Twitch, and they're wondering, what happened to 60 Greek cities? What happened to Zoroastrians? What happened to the Assyrians and Armenians? What happened to... This is a whole lot. What happened to the Jews? What happened to indigenous Egyptians? To the Christian Berbers of North Africa? Whew! That's a whole lot. Maybe we can talk about those.
That's a lot. Are you talking? And let's clarify. Are you talking about the spread of Islam in the 7th century? Is that what you're asking about in those specific groups?
I do not know.
It may be. Yeah, we may have to take that one to next week too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine. I'm gonna save that. Yeah. We don't have enough time to cover all of that. But Lager, if you join us next week, then we'll get to both your question and Joshua's question. And let's see. Just making sure. I think Joshua's question might also be a more lengthy one. Would the Byzantines and the Sasanian, Empire survive longer than they did or not? What if, the first part of that question is, what if Islam never existed? Would the Byzantines and the Sasanian Empire survive longer than it did or not?
Maybe. That one's, there's no way to know. Maybe. Yeah. That's a huge what if. That's like saying, what if the printing press had never been invented? Right. Human history shows that there are always groups of people that are competing for resources, and those groups will expand or contract politically, socially, and geographically. So if it had not been the spread of Islam in the 7th century, there probably would have been something to come along in the 8th that was similar and would have had all those different social groups and political groups go in and out of existence, right? They would have lasted a little longer, but who knows? You need, but you definitely. You're asking good questions because it's important. We call these counterfactuals, right? What if something happened and never actually did? Well, it never happened, but to consider what could have happened lets us explore what did happen and the events that lead up to it.
Definitely.
So that's why historians love these counterfactuals. They seem like a waste of time.
But they're not.
But they're not. They're actually very important, sort of analytical tools.
Yes. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We hope to see you again next Tuesday for Lo-Fi History, and even sooner if you want to join us tomorrow to celebrate Her Majesty's birthday. Then that's going to be at 2 p.m. Eastern on Facebook and YouTube. And of course, you can always become a member to enjoy our members' live streams. This Friday, Marie will be presenting Sewing Through Time. So Marie's going to be demonstrating different sewing technologies over, hundreds of years, basically?
Yeah.
Yeah, so pretty exciting stuff. So we can't wait to see you again. And thank you to everyone who joined us today and your awesome questions. And also a special shout out. Oh, that's so cute. Alma said, thank you guys. You guys always make my kid happy when you answer her questions. She gets excited and starts talking at the screen. Well, we are so glad that you get to join us. So do keep talking at the screen. Keep chatting those questions. All right, everybody. Take care until we see you next time. Bye.